Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. Still a beautiful day out there. I've got three subjects that I'd like to chat with you about today. One is COVID, of course. Second is downtown, some of the street changes. And the third thing is voting and ballots and mail-in ballots and all that. And then, of course, we're going to take your questions. So with regard to COVID, there's not a lot of change in what I've been saying for about the last week or even almost 2 weeks. And that is that currently hospitalized, 2-day-old numbers, 253. It had been, yesterday it was 239, 249 the day before, 278. So bouncing right around that 250 mark, 250 to 270. 73 people in the ICU now. That's a bounce up, a couple people. 44 people on ventilators. And so those numbers, as I think I've used this term several times, are stubbornly higher than we want them to be. They're not going up, but they're bouncing right around the same numbers. Patients admitted, 37. Patients discharged, 35. So that's keeping those numbers just about the same. A bit of good news with regard to COVID. You know, we have been tracking, when we get the cases back, we've tracked back to see, well, what date was that specimen collected? And so this has been going down a little bit in terms of the amount of time it takes to get the results back. And the last 2 days, it's run just under 3 days. And before that, it was running right at about 4 days. So this might be just a blip, or hopefully it will be a continuing trend that the results are coming back more quickly. Because as we've said a lot of times, once you have a COVID test, if you possibly can, you should really self-quarantine until you get the results back. And if the results only take 2 to 3 days, or even 3 to 4 days, that's a much more tolerable time frame for you to stay quarantined than if it's running what it was a couple of 3 weeks ago. It was running 10 days or 12 days or whatever. So that's a little bit of good news this, in terms of the length of time it's taking to get the test back. No real change in terms of the age groups that are being most affected. People in their 20s have the highest number. People in their 30s have the next highest number, and then, spread out from that. So that is a trend that has been going on, not just in St. Louis, but across the country for at least the last month, maybe 6 weeks. So those are the numbers with regard to COVID. You all know that we have, of course, we have our mask order in place. You've got to socially distance. Bars and restaurants that serve alcohol have to close at 11 p.m. In order to try to tamp down the spread. 50% occupancy on large venues. So, that's in place for at least the next couple of weeks, maybe longer. Depends on what happens with the numbers in the next couple of weeks, but it's possible that order will be extended, but we don't know that now. It's in place for 2 more weeks. So those are the numbers and the thoughts with regard to COVID. I know many of you are, your kids are going to be starting school, some this coming week, the 24th, I guess it is, some on the 31st. Everybody's anxious about that. Most schools in the city of St. Louis are virtual. Some of them do have a split virtual and in-class option that they're going to start out working on, but every school in the city of St. Louis almost every school, I should say it like that, in the city of St. Louis has a virtual component. And so hopefully that will work out. We're watching what's happening across the country in some other districts. We know that they are seeing cases, and some of them have had to pull back. So we think it was a good decision on the part of St. Louis Public Schools to go virtual. You know that they do have the instructional resource centers, which are places in the school that the kids can get to on the bus. And this is for about a third, 30% or so of the kids who have elected this. But there will not be teachers there. Those kids will still be learning virtually at a computer or Chromebook, but they will just have some support there. They'll have lunch, they'll have meals, that sort of thing. So it's all new. Everybody is anxious about it and how it's going to work out. Everybody's got a lot of things in place to encourage it to work out well. So you parents, I know this is stressful for you. Either way, whether they're in school or whether they're at home. So we're all doing this for the first time, and we'll have to work through it. As I've said many, many times, we are trying to learn how to coexist with COVID. Okay, so that's COVID. If you have questions, we'll take those in a few minutes. Downtown, you all have certainly seen on the news or on social media that there has been for the last few weeks, maybe a lot of this summer, and sort of culminating last weekend, a lot of reckless driving, a lot of dangerous driving, a lot of speed, folks on surface parking lots doing wheelies and donuts, ATVs, motorcycles doing wheelies, going down the street. You've all seen all that. There's also been a significant amount of gunfire, which sometimes is combined with that, all to make just an untenable situation. So we have made some changes in the last few days on the roads, and these are temporary changes. This isn't something that we expect to be there forever. Some folks have commented that it's ugly. It is. That's all you can say about that. It's not aesthetically pleasing, but this is about safety, and this is about trying to control the street environment. So what have we done? On Washington Avenue, the street is blocked. It's closed from 12th to 14th, so Tucker to 14th. On the east side of Tucker on Washington Avenue, street's closed. Well, let me say it the other way. You can only go westbound for 2 blocks. On 4th Street and on Broadway, and Broadway's would be 5th Street if we called it that. So on 4th Street and Broadway, which are one-way roads, there are some barriers which cause the road in several spots to go down to 1 lane. So I hope that's not too inconvenient for people. We're hoping that really curtails the speeding and the racing, which is all extremely dangerous, reckless driving. So that has happened. There's a little barrier on Market in one spot in order to, these streets are big. These streets are made for many, many more cars than we normally have on a normal day in downtown. And frankly, we're not at a normal day traffic-wise because of COVID. So many people are still working from home. There's no ball games, that sort of thing. So our streets, many of our streets are much wider than they need to be. So narrowing them down. The other thing that we've done is we have temporarily closed Eads Bridge. The city owns Eads Bridge. This week, really coincidentally, the ML King Bridge reopened after, I think, 2 years of being closed. And so just as a way of trying to control traffic more and not have folks racing to Illinois or from Illinois to Missouri, we have temporarily closed the Eads Bridge. We'll see how that goes. We just closed it this morning. And we've already had a few calls from people concerned that we closed it. All of this is sort of emergency procedures here to try to get a handle on this raucous behavior. So that's downtown. I read social media too. I know some of you are unhappy because it's ugly. If we're going to leave it like this for any length of time, we need to figure out something that's not as ugly. But right now, this is an emergency situation. We're going to leave it like this. So it'll get better. What else? Some other, it was ugly. What was the other thing? Oh, we've actually had some comments on social media, people who were appreciative of the changes because, you know, we have been tweaking this sort of all summer, and we have put some barriers on the riverfront and to keep folks from congregating on the riverfront and engaging in this similar kind of behavior. That moved people. We've also eliminated the parking on Market Street in front of Keener Plaza. Again, a big gathering place. And so, you know, when you make a change in one place with regard to any activity, it often moves somewhere else. And so we will have law enforcement. I want to say plenty of law enforcement. I hope that we'll have much more law enforcement out this weekend, and tow trucks, and to try to impress upon folks who I'm sure they think they're having fun, but they're really disrupting the 10,000 people who live downtown. They're making it impossible for the businesses downtown. So we are going to, we'll be out this weekend. So I hope it's better. I think it will be. And the third thing I was going to talk with you about before we take your questions, and we touched on this one other day, I think this week, and that is, you may have seen in the Post-Dispatch just a few hours ago that the Secretary of State had purchased 85 ballot drop boxes. Now, we talked about that. You know, it's a metal box that sits on the curb that you could put your ballot in. And those had been purchased before the state legislature recently passed something that said that your ballot had to be physically mailed to the election board, or the local election authority. So that's unfortunate because I think these ballot drop boxes would be a great convenience to people who could go by and put their ballot, either their absentee ballot or their mail-in ballot, put it in this metal secured ballot drop box. You know, I don't know if an executive order from the governor could make them allowed. I don't know if any of that would be possible, but I certainly encourage that. And in fact, yesterday I signed on to a letter that is being circulated by the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which I'm a part of that group. Most mayors in the country are, particularly of big cities. And this was a letter that was sent to Leader McConnell, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, and Leader McCarthy. Really signed by, I don't know the count here, I bet there's, you know, more than 50 mayors. And, you know, comparable, you know, Mayor of Louisville, Chicago, Atlanta, Dayton, Denver, San Antonio, Nashville, and many, many more. Underscoring the importance of maintaining the integrity of our elections through a robust vote by mail system. And so this was just encouraging the leadership in the House and the Senate to make sure that the U.S. Post Office can support that. And I think these ballot boxes, drop boxes, would be a very good addition to that. But right now it does not look like we're going to be able to use those in Missouri. And I think it's 75 days until the election, 74 days till the election. So there's time if we're able to figure that out. But certainly very important that people are able to vote easily, conveniently, safely. Most of us will probably vote in person, and our election board, as you know, has very good procedures in place for voting in person. You have to wear a mask, you have to socially distance, they've got hand sanitizer, don't reuse pens, all that sort of thing. So voting in person is still a very viable and maybe even the best option. But we also understand that there are people that are uncomfortable doing that and want to vote either absentee or by mail-in. So however we vote, we've got to keep that safe and easy for people to use. So those were my 3 topics. Do we have any questions?
A couple questions on all these topics, Mayor. So first with COVID, we got a question from Michelle, who lives in an apartment building in the city, and they're looking for signs about social distancing and masks. Does the health department have any signage available or anything that the city can provide?
We do. Can we post the link to it?
Yep, we can.
We do. It's aimed at business, but you could certainly use it in an apartment building as well. And maybe put it on the elevators. I don't know what sort of building you live in, but wearing a mask in an apartment building is very important. You're indoors. Now, when you're in your apartment, obviously you don't have to wear it. And maintaining social distance, and only a couple of people in the elevator, depending on how big the elevator is. So yes, we'll post a link to that, and I think there's a couple of options. One, I think you can go to the health department, pick it up, but you may also be able to print it out, which would probably be convenient for a lot of people if you've got a printer at home. So either of those options.
Mary's question, she lives in 63109 and is high risk and wants to know, under the city's mask mandate order for public places, do sidewalks count? Because she likes to take walks to stay sane, but sees people on sidewalks not wearing masks.
Well, taking a walk to stay sane, I highly recommend. I need to do it more myself. So masks are required indoors in any public space, a store, whatever. And they are required outdoors if you are within 6 feet of another person. So if you're walking down the sidewalk by yourself and there's nobody else there, hopefully you'll have your mask. I usually hang mine off my ear. I mean, it's like sort of a new earring type of thing. You'll have it with you so that if you're walking down the sidewalk and someone comes walking towards you, you'll put it on. So that's the deal with sidewalks or with parks or wherever you might be outdoors.
2 more COVID questions, Mayor. Jeff is inquiring about the status of COVID-19 restrictions in the city's basketball and tennis courts.
Basketball courts are closed. Tennis courts are open. Why is that? Because tennis, you're generally far apart when you're playing tennis. When you're basketball, you're right up there under the net, mixing it up with one another. So what was the question? Does he have to wear a mask?
No, just the status of basketball and tennis courts.
Okay. No basketball. Tennis is okay.
So also in COVID-19, we got a question asking when the city might consider re-allowing social in-person visits for detainees in the 2 city jails.
I don't know the answer to that. Not now. It's just, a congregate living facility of any kind is, you just don't want to introduce lots of other people coming in and out, seeing someone in person, and possibly spreading COVID throughout the facility. So, not right now.
So questions about elections. We did get a question about whether the city was considering, like other cities have done, and having a one-stop community center voting place that's in like a large place that anybody can vote at.
It's something that we're talking about. Maybe one place, maybe a couple of different places. I haven't spoken with the election board about it this week, but we talked about it last week and the week before, and it's something that we're considering, which might be convenient for people. So we'll see.
Yolanda's question, Mayor, is about the downtown activity. The extra resources, are they impacting other parts of the city, particularly the north side? And how does that happen when the cities said they are short officers?
So it happens requiring officers to work overtime. It happens by our special units that come together that sometimes are in other parts of the city. And it happens by calling people in off of their days off and off of their vacation. And that's how it happens. For the most part, the districts will still have, I think your question was, will it affect the number of people in the north districts? Not really. The 4th district, which is what downtown is in, is also goes fairly far north. So we understand that we've got to be everywhere across the city. I should have mentioned that it also means calling in the traffic division, which, those are the folks who give tickets, who do accident reconstruction. So they will also, that's a specialized unit, and they will also be in this weekend and in downtown.
Janet's question is just confirming that the closure of the Eads Bridge is part of the downtown enforcement and that there's not actually anything wrong with it.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with the Eads Bridge. That bridge was rebuilt, maybe it reopened 5 years ago, maybe longer by now. And no, there's nothing wrong with the Eads Bridge. It's part of sort of these emergency actions that we're taking.
Do you think that the temporary closure of Washington Avenue is an opportunity, or let me put it this way, is it possible for the restaurants along there to take part in the expanded outdoor dining program that the city launched during COVID?
Sure. There's a permit for that. It's easy to get. There are other areas of the city that have done that, who have closed a street for, Friday and Saturday night, for example, put tables and chairs out. Yeah, that would be fine.
Bailey's question, Mayor, is about enforcement. So the blocks that have been put in the streets, are there officers who also will be enforcing a lot of the speeding and other things that happen along with that?
Yes. Are you talking about the blocks that are closed? There won't be any cars on the 2 blocks of Washington that are closed. Maybe you're talking about where we've narrowed the streets down. Will there also be law enforcement there? Yes, there will be.
On another topic, we have a question about the outside review of SLMPD and what is the latest update on that progress?
So that started, I'm going to say a month ago, maybe a little bit more. We have not received anything. It's an ongoing process. I think it was expected to take about 6 months, but it is ongoing, and basically through review of policies and talking with command staff and that sort of thing. So we haven't received any reports or anything at this point.
Okay, I think last question, Mayor, is from Christopher, related to some of the road work happening last weekend tied to MLS over 6440.
Oh, yeah.
Are there any additional closures planned? That was sort of inconvenient.
It was inconvenient to have Highway 40 closed. I know it was. There'll probably be other road closures during any construction project. You have road closures, but I'm not aware of any road closures, any more road closures like closing Highway 40, 6440 that would be required. It had to be closed because they were taking ramps down and bridges that had gone across the highway, so it had to be closed. We're always very thoughtful about, because we know it's definitely inconvenient and it's a pain in the neck when the road that you want to go on is closed, but we're always careful to make sure that the weekend, 1, it's on the weekend, 2, it's back open by morning, rush hour on Monday, and 3, that there's not any big event going on. Now, we know there's no big events going on right now, but we always work around all of those events, and we coordinate it with the state, we coordinate it with St. Louis County, we coordinate it with our own street department. So I'm sorry for your inconvenience, but it had to be, those bridges had to come down.
That's it for questions today, Mayor.
That's it? Good. Is it
Almost 2:30.
Almost 2:30 already. All right, you all have a great weekend. This week has just been lovely weather, and I hope you all got to enjoy it a little bit. I think it's going to warm up or get a little more humid this weekend. But thank you all for being with us, and appreciate your questions and appreciate your input. Have a great weekend.